We are back. You're listening to You Would Think, the Philadelphia Flyers podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Collington, and joining me today is the one and only Mr. Kevin Durso. How are you, buddy?
Exhausted.
Yeah, I'm exhausted too. It's been a long couple of weeks. We were gone for a couple of weeks. We both had a lot of stuff going on. We appreciate you guys sticking with us and coming back on us here. The Flyers still haven't shown up. It's been a couple weeks since we did a show, and honestly, there's really not a ton to talk about. The effort's been pretty poor, capped off by absolutely torching a lead to the Buffalo Sabres today. Kevin, talk me off the ledge here, man. How bad is this team?
Awful. God.
Oh no.
Awful.
Oh no. That's not the answer we were looking for.
On a day when there's talk going on around the franchise, so to speak, and I mean like in the building, it's not a secret. It's 5 years since Ed Snyder passed away. Right? That was exactly. I mean, I have not seen a more fitting ending to a game than that one for this team. It is the most fitting of endings for this team.
You know,
collapse to the Buffalo freaking Sabres.
You know, I was thinking of a similar metaphor because I was going to start this show with we had reason to be excited, right? The Flyers were up 3-2. They beat Boston on Saturday, yesterday at time of recording here. And we were starting to hear things like points out, games in hand, and the math was still tough, but it was starting to look doable, and the team was starting to play together. And for a large portion of the Buffalo game today, they did look fairly solid.
I mean, take away the first 5 minutes of the second period, and then you're up until the last 5 of the third period. I'll give you that.
Sure, for a large portion of the game, which honestly, after the last 3 weeks, I'll take 40, 45-ish good minutes after the efforts we've seen. But that being said, it's still not enough, obviously. And when you fall apart to a team like the Buffalo Sabres, we kind of said it before the show, it's over.
Well,
it's over. And I know you thought it was over a long time ago, and I understand that.
Right. I was going to say, we haven't done a show in a little while, right? So the last time we did a show, we were talking about the way that they lost to the Islanders almost 3 weeks ago. Right. So, and that was still not the latest 6-1 loss. You know what I mean? Like that's bad enough in and of itself. We did not have a show on the 28th. We did not have a show on the 4th of April. And because of that, I wasn't able to come on here and tell you that for me, the season ended with the first Buffalo loss 6-1. Like,
that's fair.
When you get embarrassed by the Buffalo Sabres, that should be the end of it right there. You might as well, you could have stayed in Buffalo for all I cared, you know? And the funny part is that they lose in a shootout to the Islanders. They beat Boston in overtime. They lose to Boston in regulation, again, fittingly, on a shorthanded goal by Brad Marchand. And then they lose in a shootout to the Islanders again before beating Boston on Saturday. And I go, somehow or other in that 5-game package, they're reeling people back in. You know what I mean? Like, they're actually still finding a way to reel people back in because somehow, despite what I turned around and said, and I've said it on 97.3 several times, that even though to me the season is over, it was over the second they lost to Buffalo, even though the season's over, they are 4 points back going into this Sunday game, and because it's Buffalo, and Buffalo's not going to make the playoffs very clearly at this point, all you had to do was find a way to win the game, and you're still 2 points back with Boston's result pending tonight, right?
By the way, today's win was Buffalo's 10th win of the season.
And third against the Flyers.
And so third against the Flyers.
Do the math.
When a team has, 26 points, and you've gifted them a fair chunk, that's not where you want to be. It's not where you want to be, especially when you also can't beat Boston. Spoiler alert.
I'm pulling it up because I thought about this on the drive home, because one of the other things, by the way, is that, as I mentioned, I'm exhausted because if you think watching it on television is tiring, go be in the building and watch it because it's worse. It's just, you come out of it exhausted mentally because you can't believe what you're seeing. You know, it's that pitiful.
Yeah.
But let's go back to Buffalo for a minute, because it was February 23rd was when they had previously gotten their last win, right? Like, up until they go on this whole long losing streak, the Flyers beat them twice. They start losing all these games. The Flyers have to rally back to beat them on March 9th.
Save face.
Basically, and at that point in time, we kind of still thought, oh, well, wait a minute, it's only March 9th, and now they've won a game, and they came back. That should, maybe
now
that'll
they've won a
spark
game.
something, But then you keep going, and it went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then all of a sudden, and then, by the way, they gave away a game to the Flyers 4-3.
Yep.
That's an overtime loss, and then they win the game 6-1. And then they found a way to beat the Rangers 3 days later, 2 games later. Then they beat the Devils. Then they've lost 2 in a row again, Devils and Washington again, and now they beat the Flyers again. This team has 4 wins in a month and a half, and 2 of them are against the Flyers.
Yep.
And this team
And
has scored 5 goals or more against the or 4. I'll say 4 actually, because even the shootout loss they had, 4 goals or more against the Flyers 4 times.
For whatever reason, something's not working, and I know we've talked about that on the show a lot this year. But we looked at this roster going into the season, and we saw a top 10 NHL team. We argued maybe a top 5 NHL team. We were expecting the young guys to take another step. We were expecting the team to get better, and a lot of your young guys didn't take a step forward. Some of them took a step backwards. Carter Hart had a very, very poor year, and we've talked about it a lot. And again, we all kind of think he's going to bounce back, and we all know he's still a very good goaltender. But at the same time, that doesn't take away from the fact that he's had a very, very, very poor season. And is it safe to say that if the Flyers have a league average goaltender, they're comfortably in a playoff spot right now? And again, I'm not in any way on the trade Carter Hart, blah, blah, blah. But factually speaking, is he at fault for this season?
No, absolutely not. Because to me, no, let's do this way. Now, I do open ice hits with Broads, and Broads texted me as the game was closing in on an end or shortly after it was over and turned and said, you know what, I blame Haig for a lot of this because you had no reason to spark them with that little mini scrum behind the net, and you gave them hope. I turned around and I said, my thing is that Claude Giroux has been playing in this league for how long? Don't ice the puck with 3.5 minutes left. Just don't. Not when it's not needed. Don't do it. And then he lost the faceoff. So he's supposed to be one of the best faceoff guys in the league. He lost the faceoff. He iced the puck with 3 minutes left, and they scored a goal off of it.
Yep, and that's your captain.
And I'm not trying to sit there and say that means it's all Claude Giroux's fault. But my point is that that's your leader. That's your captain. That's supposed to be one of your best players. Why are you making a mistake like that still? Why are you doing that to the worst team in the league still 41 games into a season? Technically, I mean, in a realistic situation, this is your halfway point, right? Like, if you're playing 82 games, this is the halfway point. And if this team is still the way it is, then half of a normal season, they would still look like this. And maybe we'd sit there and we'd say, okay, the trade deadline in a normal season is not tomorrow. It's down the line somewhere, right? It's a little ways down the line, and you're only 4 points out or whatever, so maybe you have a shot, but you don't, it's hard to buy into that when you play like this consistently, and that's what they do consistently. They make stupid mistakes. This is a very poor fundamental team, and one of the things I talk about on Open Ice Hits a lot, or just in general when I'm watching hockey games, the thing I do when I watch the entire league is I like good, sound, fundamental hockey. It's what I like to watch the most, and that's why I don't care that the New York Islanders are a boring-ass team. They're a good team, and I enjoy watching them because they play good, fundamental hockey. You can think it's boring. I see fundamental hockey. I'm enjoying that game. I do that with everybody.
I don't enjoy watching them. I appreciate what they do. How about that?
Right.
I appreciate what they're doing and the skill it takes. But the thing is, I wonder how much of the team struggles this season. And you can call this an excuse. You can call this whatever you want. I wonder, we've talked about the young players not being particularly good, and a lot of the young guys have struggled. Travis Konechny's gone on long scoring droughts, and Joel Farabee broke one today, and hopefully that gets him going. I wonder how much of the team's struggles this season is due to the lack of practice days. And
I'm sure it contributes,
right,
but it's still no excuse.
Of course, it's not an excuse. The whole league is dealing with it. But you see teams with more veteran leadership, teams that don't need the practice days quite as much, doing a little better this year. And teams that have more young guys tend to be struggling.
No, like which teams are you referring to when you say that?
A team like the Vancouver Canucks, I think they expected to take a bigger step forward this year, and they struggled a little bit. Obviously, then they had their COVID break, and they're looking at hopefully resuming some games soon. But that is a team that kind of struggled in the earlier half of the season. But some of these teams, like you see Toronto succeeding in the North, and a lot of their a lot of their success, it seems to me, watching a little bit of Toronto talk, not a ton, is that a lot of their push, obviously it's Austin Matthews, but then it's a lot of their depth, veteran guys, right? Joe Thornton's had a big role with that team. Wayne Simmons has had a big role with that team. A lot of their bit part kind of guys have had a big role with that team.
Sure.
But the young guys, I mean, they've had a good season. Obviously, Austin Matthews is an absurd goal scorer, and that's something that we should probably be talking more about. But overall, I wonder if the lack of progression from guys like Travis Sanheim, guys like Phil Myers, who have had tough seasons at times, even guys like Travis Konechny, like we talked about earlier, I wonder how much of that could have been massaged out over the season if you have some more practice days.
I suppose, but that's still no excuse again. And I
Right.
really just don't like talking about that anymore with this. I even turned and said, I'm tired of overanalyzing this team for like where we can pull things from. Like, I don't know that I'm going to do a takeaways article for the rest of the year following this game that really hits on the game itself at this point. Like, it might honestly just be waiting to see, or not even waiting to see, but pointing out who's making the same mistakes over and over again and why you have to think about whether you overvalued them or not, because that's what they do. They're really overvaluing some of this young talent to an extent. I mean, look, I get it. Phil Myers has some great potential. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, potential is potential until it's realized. So who cares that he's got a lot of potential? I need to start seeing stuff in the here and now. And if you're getting benched and you come back and you still don't look like the same like the player that you were previously, or like you're taking steps because you're a year older and a year more experienced, then when do you say forget it and start to move on? I mean, this team used to go out, and I understand it's a different world now. There's a salary cap. You can't just go all in every single year anymore. I get that.
No one's asking for Paul Holmgren to take the reins back.
I didn't say no one's asking for Paul Holmgren to take the reins back. But what I'm saying is that you can sit there and live off of young guys coming, young guys coming, young guys coming. And how long do you do that before you start to realize that the guys who are here are not the answer? You know, this is not where it's going, or not where it's going, but this is not what's working. And they're not contributing the right way. And you've got to take that into consideration at some point in time. And that doesn't mean I'm saying trade Phil Myers, but I'm saying you got to start thinking longer term with all these guys. And you signed Phil Myers to a decent enough deal. And what's the problem with the way that we look at this team? We sit there and we go, oh, that'll be a nice value in 2 or 3 years. Is it though? Because right now he looks like he's being overpaid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know that people want to sit here and deal with the 2 to 3 years from now, 2 to 3 years down the road, maybe 5 years down the road. Like, that's not what people want anymore. That was what the message was when Ron Hextall took over. And look what happens now.
You're saying the patience is wearing a little thin in Philadelphia, and it's time to start putting some W's on the board?
Well, no, because
basically
putting W's on the board. How?
Well, I just mean in the future, right? Like it's they've been in neutral for so long.
Yeah, but see, the problem is that then if you were that type of, if that's the way you're thinking it's supposed to be, the patience is running thin, you've got to start finding a way to put it together, all that type of stuff, then why didn't you address Matt Niskanen's departure better? You had enough time to think about it. And the best you did was Eric Gustafsson, who does not play. And you wasted $3 million.
Very clearly, I'm thinking about the team differently than Chuck Fletcher's thinking about the team. Speaking of Chuck Fletcher's thinking about the team, what's the story for the trade deadline? Like, we're here, right? This was your last effort before the trade deadline.
I mean, do you want the what they should do or what's going to happen?
Well, I'd like to hear both answers because I have a feeling what they should do is cut bait with everybody that's not nailed down, and what they're going to do is next to nothing. So hit me with the breakdown.
Okay, so you're in agreement. Like the should is get the grenade and throw it in, right?
I didn't say that's what should happen. For the record, I predicted what you think should happen.
Okay, I don't think they should blow the whole thing up. Okay, but there's a group of people that I look at, players that I look at, that I go, you can build around some of the things they do. And like one of them today, I thought Joel Farabee was really good. So I sit there and I sit there and I go, that's the Joel Farabee from the beginning of the year. You can build around him. He's 21. He's going to get better. 21, 22, he'll get better, right? You still have to latch yourself to Carter Hart at some point.
Yeah.
You know? You still have to. That's just the way it goes. You have to latch yourself to Carter Hart and let him adjust. And quite frankly, he was having a perfectly fine game, all things considered, until maybe the third one that leaks through him, which again is compounded by the icing call that Giroux takes and losing the faceoff.
And for the record, at least the first one, the
first
first goal
was
of
a
the game
set
was
play.
on a bad turnover by Travis Sanheim.
Was it? No. The first goal was the set play off the faceoff.
You're right. I'm sorry. Was that?
And
Okay.
that was Sean Couturier who loses a faceoff and gets skated around by Jeff Skinner, who's not a center.
No.
You know, what's the problem with that? Scott Laughton looked like he was trying, like, honestly, the second goal, Scott Laughton just doesn't even try to play the puck there at one point in time. And I'm like, I almost tweeted out, I didn't do it, but I almost tweeted out, is he thinking about whether or not he's going to be moved tomorrow? And he had a momentary brain lapse in the middle of that, because that just can't happen. So that's
Well, he
three.
certainly
I mean,
didn't-
that's three.
He certainly didn't do his value any favors. I don't know.
And the funny part is I thought he did his value favors in Saturday's game against Boston. I thought he played really well in that game, and he just went right back to some of the old stuff right away.
You know, on Saturday, Scott Laughton played a tenacious, prove what I can do in the playoffs type of game. Right? Really a good audition for the trade block if he was indeed there. And obviously at time of recording, we don't know for a fact he's there. And today you kind of just throw it all out the window because this team is just poison. Like, does anybody want anything from the Philadelphia Flyers right now?
Well, there you go. And so can I, if I may, I want to pull up one of the comments we got
Please.
so far because Brian's watching on Facebook. And he says, nothing will happen at the trade deadline with the Flyers. And I think that's actually exactly what's going to happen.
I think that's, yeah.
And I'll tell you why. It has nothing to do with that they don't have players that have maybe some value. Because I do think Scott Laughton is a player of value. And I do think that no matter, like, honestly, if the best you can do is a third-round pick for him, do it. Just get the other.
I don't think you can at this point.
You don't think you can? Oh, like you don't think that's the best they can do, or you don't think they
I
will?
don't think the Flyers could get a third-round pick for Scott Laughton right now.
See, I do, but that's like I
think you're looking at a fourth or worse.
I don't see that because I do think that a playoff team out there says, you know, if a playoff team like Toronto says Nick Foligno is worth a first, then Scott Laughton's worth one of those middle picks, like a third.
Maybe.
Especially as desperation ramps up. But my point is that you got to go to the other side of the equation. Trades are made by two different sides, obviously. So you have to go to the other side of the equation and say, Chuck Fletcher, now's not the time to sit there and be sentimental about what Scott Laughton brings to the table and how he's a good energy guy and blah, 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 and how he's been here for all this time and he loves Philly and Philly loves him and blah, blah, blah. Enough of that stuff. That's exactly what has you in the position where you are, is this loyalty.
Yeah,
this
loyalty's
blind
gone.
Loyalty.
Yep.
No, but it's not gone. That's the problem.
Well, it should be gone.
Maybe the loyalty is gone from the fan base.
Chuck Fletcher needs to pull it back, right? Isn't that why we got rid of Ron Hextall?
No,
because he wasn't playing buddy with the alumni. Right? Come on.
Look,
Wasn't
I
that
don't care
rumor
about
around? Come on now.
No, that was, but it also had to do with the fact that the team's on ice success wasn't very good either, you know.
Yeah, but I think if he wasn't rubbing the alumni in the press box the wrong way, I think he might have had a little more leash.
Well, then that's just stupid too. I mean,
yes, correct.
Like,
Yes.
quite frankly, if that's the reason why you fired a guy, then
I'm
so
not saying
be it.
that's
Like,
the reason
I
you
don't
fire
care.
the guy. I'm saying that's the reason the grit.
No, I mean, I thought
the
it had a
grit
little bit
riles up like it does.
I also thought it had a little bit to do with what was supposed, like there was that whole story about how he was, you know, planning people in the locker room to monitor what players were doing and the stuff like that and things like that. And don't get me wrong, again, like we talked about with the other thing, like you mentioned the practice days with COVID. I think that there's an element to it that comes into play that is the inability to go out and do something as a group away from the rink.
I think that's completely valid as well. Yes.
It's valid, but everybody's doing it. So it's not an excuse. I'm just saying I do think that plays into it as well. But
the Capitals are doing it, but they got suspended for that.
Yeah, but see, I don't think they're doing it now. And they're leading division, aren't they? Tied.
I honestly couldn't tell you who's leading the East right now because every team, it's just a bloodbath.
It's a tie.
Okay.
The Islanders and the Capitals are tied.
It's
and
a
Pittsburgh's
bloodbath,
sitting
and
2 points back.
The Flyers got knocked out in the 6th round, and they've been left behind.
You're
right?
saying
You were in the running.
You're saying with 10, with 10 rounds involved, or 12 or whatever it is.
12,
you're about
15
halfway.
rounds, however many rounds you want to take it. The Flyers got knocked out in the early rounds.
You know what? Let's do 10 because we're about I want to say 60% of the way through the season, but you got through about 70% of it.
Oh, then we've been on wobbly legs since the middle of the fourth.
I've been on wobbly legs since maybe the third. To be honest,
it's been a rough team. Okay,
third round out of 10. Jeez.
Okay, so once again, it seems like you're calling for kind of big fundamental changes. I don't know if it happens at the deadline, but a conversation that needs to happen. Claude Giroux has a year and a half left.
Yeah.
Does Claude Giroux finish that career with the Flyers, or finish that contract with the Philadelphia Flyers?
Yes.
Should he? Should he?
See, I think I know people put the focus on Claude Giroux, and here's always been my take on it: that Claude Giroux would not be the source of all of the ire of everybody if he was not still somehow viewed to be the best player on this team. You know what I mean? Like, somebody needs to supplant that and be the guy you focus on. Let's just hypothetically say, and I'm not saying
it should be Sean Couturier.
Well, and I still think,
right,
and I think Sean Couturier is recognized as one of the best players on the team. I'm not saying he's not, but he's not the leader. You know what I mean? He's still not the leader. And people so often associate captaincy with best player. You know, I mean, let's put it this way. Bottom line is that what's pissing people off about this game against Buffalo? It's not that the Flyers lose to Buffalo on its own. It's compounded by the fact that they don't play Taylor Hall because they're going to trade him. They're not playing, Jack Eichel's not able to play. He's hurt. There's the captain and the best player, right, though? Like, when people talk about whether or not Jack Eichel has a future in Buffalo, you're talking about trading your captain and best player.
Right. Okay. So I'm not saying that Claude Giroux deserves all the blame for the team's leadership failures, and I'm not saying that. But if you're sitting here saying that the team needs fundamental changes in its leadership, and things need to change, and the current group's not working, and all these things you're saying about, how long is it young guys, and how long do you until you recognize that it's what's there that's not working? When does Claude Giroux at a certain point become the center of that? Because he is the longest tenured member of this team by quite a long ways.
See, the thing I toy with, the problem I have with talking about it like that is this. I'm not disagreeing with you that when do you start putting the attention on Claude Giroux and saying what do you do about his future? Right. My problem is that you're definitely getting to the end of that contract. No one's going to take it. He's got a no-move clause and he makes over $8 million. No one's going to take that contract.
He's waiving it and you're eating half the money at this point.
Well, fair, but at the same time, I wouldn't. How many guys can you eat money on before you decide that you know what I mean? Like, you're already cap strapped. Let's eat money.
Like I said, that conversation is not happening this year. But if we're sitting here a year from now, say 2 weeks before the trade deadline, and we're sitting in a similar spot, this is a real conversation. Do you respect Claude Giroux enough to give him a chance to go maybe try to make a run if you're sitting in a spot where you might not make the playoffs? And I know we're not there yet. Obviously, we're talking about a year from now.
Do I think you owe it to him to do that? Yes.
But that conversation is going to happen this summer.
I don't see it. I can't see it happening.
The conversation is going to happen.
No, it's that blind loyalty again. It's what I go back to. Let me tell you, because I forget when I put these thoughts down. I wish I knew, but I wrote some stuff down because I got to a point where I had to, because it just was. I'd watched another god-awful game from this team, and I wrote some stuff down because I finally got it. Like, something hit me where I went, I know not what the problem is, but I know why this is like a vicious cycle that never breaks, and I finally got it. And I already mentioned the word, so I'll continue to use it. It's loyalty, okay?
Okay.
Here's the reason. This is about a loyalty to the current group of players you have. This inability to do anything to break it up because every guy's a good guy in the locker room. Every guy's a valuable part to this team. It happens all the damn time.
Every guy's a glue guy.
And this is but this is why these guys have been around for, like, seriously, if you're sitting here today, tomorrow, whenever, the last week, however long it's been that you had to be in trade deadline mode, if you're groveling with trading Michael Raffl, who's been here for 7-8 years himself, and realizing that that's a guy who can be replaced by another guy who comes through the system or another low-key free agency signing, then you're doing it wrong. Like, you can't have some...
There are a dozen Michael Raffles on... There are a dozen Michael Raffles on the roster every year.
Yeah, you want to know one of them?
On the free agency market, I mean.
Hang on, you want to know one of them? Tyler Pitlick.
Yeah.
And you didn't have any problems in him walk away because it was a one-year deal and it wasn't that big of a deal, right?
He was an ad and the guy had no ties.
Maybe. I don't know. All right, but this is also more than just about the loyalty that the team shows to the players. This is a loyalty that the fans have, and the loyalty the fans continue to show to the organization that prolongs this. We know the organization is loyal to a fault when it comes to everybody. Players, coaches, alumni. Go ahead.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So I know that he doesn't have a role that includes any official hockey power.
Okay.
But what's Bob Clark doing in the front office these days?
He's considered a senior advisor, I think. I don't know.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, anyway. There's a way to look it up. I don't have the stuff right on the top.
Right. And Paul Holmgren kind of is in a similar role, right?
Right, but okay, so then let me go into this then, okay? Because they have this loyalty.
I think I've sensed the problem.
Okay, but hold on. There's this loyalty that to a fault to former players, coaches, alumni, and there's nothing, look, truthfully, there's nothing wrong with the alumni having a big presence in the community. When you see
love it.
Bob Kelly and Joe Watson and
Bernie Perron
and Brad Marsh and Bernie Perron running around doing all these things in the community, there is nothing wrong with that.
Fantastic.
But they do always, or traditionally, they have always put former players into management and coaching roles, and they say once a Flyer, always a Flyer.
Yep,
and
Flyer for life.
It's you're part of the family for life, and and this has consistently backfired, right?
Whoa,
okay.
Crazy.
Yeah. No. So hold on a minute. So this was supposed to be what Chuck Fletcher's here for and what Alain Vigneault is here for. This was supposed to be the out-of-the-box, go outside the organization, fresher perspective. Remember those words?
Yep.
Fresher perspective. And it was supposed to be out with Bob Clark, out with Paul Holmgren. They're not the management role anymore. Out with Ron Hextall.
Well, that's certainly not happening.
And also out with guys, Craig Berube as your coach and Dave Haxtell, who was Ron Hextall's guy that whole time, right? And his coaching pick. And that's what it was supposed to be. The core has been the same for how many years? You know what I mean? And look, and maybe a piece or two have moved on. Wayne Simmons is not here anymore and hasn't been for a little while. But the loyalty to, like I said, it's not just Claude Giroux, Jake Voracek, Sean Couturier. It's go down the line. It's Scott Laughton, Michael Raffel, James Van Riemsdyk. These guys have been around for forever, it feels like.
I got one more name on the loyalty list for you. And it's a question I asked you on our last show a couple of weeks ago. Why on earth is Ian LePerriere still on this team? Is still involved in this team at all?
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's another one, sure. But
how's that for a loyalty name? And listen, I get it. The guy took a slap shot off the face for you. I get it. You're not getting any grief from me if that guy is in the press box with Bob Kelly shaking hands and kissing babies post-COVID from 6 feet apart.
I like that.
And if he is part of that group, we have no problem. But the fact that he is serving a functional role, managing your god-awful penalty kill, hello, why? And this isn't a new problem. This isn't a problem that was caused by Alain Vigneault.
Right.
This was not a problem that was caused by Chuck Fletcher. What coach comes in? What GM comes in? When's the last time you heard of a GM-coach combo coming in and keeping the penalty kill coach?
I mean, I don't know. I hear you, but
they clean house. They bring in their own guys. They clean house. Why didn't they?
Because somehow or other they actually thought he provided value.
Or
somebody said
someone upstairs said, "Hi, we'd really appreciate it if you kept this guy."
Either that, or I'll tell you what the problem is. Again, it doesn't have to be, because Ian LePerriere is not the same former Flyer that Bob Clark was. You know what I mean? And
I understand.
No, I mean in terms of longevity. So what I'm trying to get at is that he's a guy who was well-traveled, who played for a bunch of organizations. So perhaps just in the hockey community, it doesn't really matter if it's the once a Flyer, always a Flyer mindset with him. It's just I know he's a good guy. Like
he's
Chuck
a hockey
Fletcher's
man.
He's a hockey guy, and I hate saying it like that because we have fun with that sometimes. Like in terms of the lifestyle that fans have when we say hockey guy, but like that's the fun part of it. You're right. But so let me go back to where I was going with this, because when you show loyalty to these players, it's done in the form of these long-term contracts that you've signed year after year after year.
Yep.
And here's the thing, even like in the case of James Van Riemsdyk, for example. Here's a guy gets drafted by the team. You're showing the loyalty there. Then he's traded in arguably one of the most criticized trades that the franchise has ever made. And then you traded a young JVR who goes on to be a 35-goal scorer in Toronto.
Who anchors Toronto's top power play for half a decade.
For a bottom pair defenseman like Luke Shen, who might well have been a seventh defenseman.
Who they traded for because he was massive and fought, let's be honest.
But this is exactly the point, though. It's because of that nothing will happen. Because of that loyalty, the rest of the league is looking around probably and sitting there. Because if I had $1 for every one of the tweets I see that says, oh, so Chuck must have changed his phone number. Chuck's phone must be in the bowl of rice right now or something. He must have broken it. Chuck must, have lost his phone or misplaced it or something. Or maybe, what's the deal? This is why the phone's not ringing or whatever. It's because the rest of the league is looking around saying, you're stuck with these guys. Have
We're the
fun.
poison apple.
You made your bed, and now you have to lie in it, Yep. And it really handcuffs the Flyers from doing anything drastic right now. And with that being said, there's also the loyalty of the fans that comes into play. Because the fans have been loyal for over 50 years. We know this, and that's nothing wrong with that. It's what makes sports great is when you have fan loyalty and you have a fan base that lives and dies with the way the team plays and all that stuff.
Especially when we're talking 40-plus years without a championship.
Sure. So these people are faithfully loyal. We know this. But that's the problem. As long as they're loyal, then the franchise doesn't see anything wrong. Do you want to know why?
As long as the building is full and the ticket revenue is high.
Well, that's debatable.
Well,
you
know what I mean. Generally speaking,
being full is debatable.
You know what I mean. As long as as long as the merchandise is moving, as long as it looks financially like the team is okay, there is no motivation for a large corporation that owns this team to make changes to make the team better.
Bingo!
And this is
you're reading my notes.
I'm not reading your notes. We do have some shared notes sometimes. This is not one of those occasions.
No. But I'm saying you're looking at it pretty much like this is exactly what I was about to say because I said there are fans in the seats and there's money being made in that building at every turn. Concessions, merchandise, parking, ticket sales, all this. Oh, and by the way, the biggest money maker of them all probably Gritty because and look,
truly,
Gritty is funny. I don't disapprove of mascots.
It's a lot less cute when you're getting your ass kicked.
Bingo. And you know what else? Nobody else wants to wake up every other day and find another Gritty video tweeted out by the team when they're like sitting there going, your hockey team sucks.
No, what they should do is tweet out a promotion that depends on how many saves their goalies make the night after they let up a whole bunch of goals.
You mean the charity play?
The charity one, yeah, that's a good one.
For every save they make, they're donating 100 meals. And charity's nice, don't get me wrong. And
they're just only going to donate about 400 meals this month.
But it's like timing is everything, okay?
Yeah.
That was the most poorly timed, let's do something nice for the community that could have ever happened. And again, let's go back to something here, okay? So as long as they are making money off of all of that, then they don't care about the product on the ice. And here's the reason why. Remember that this franchise, and I'm going back to what I just talked about from 5 years ago. Remember this franchise was founded by Ed Snyder, and Snyder himself was a vocal part of this franchise. He made himself visible and vocal. That's the kind of owner he was.
For better or for worse, to be fair.
Love it or hate it, that's the owner he was. And when he passed away 5 years ago today, and let's face it, his absence was really 2 years prior to that. Like, he wasn't really around all that often. He kind of went back and
He did a good job of stepping back.
Well, he stepped back because of his health, too. Like, if he was healthy enough, I think he would have still just showed up to every game if he could have. But I think, like, at that point in time where his health was, he kind of secluded himself to California and kind of just pulled back, right?
So, for the record, I missed that shot every game of him up in the boxes.
I hear you.
Every game, every game they would cut
better days, right? I believe. Did you happen to catch? By the way, it's also an anniversary today. I believe it was 11 years ago.
The Rangers shootout.
Yeah, Brian Boucher tweeted about that. Fun times, huh? But anyway, so he kind of had stepped back already, and at that point in time when he stepped back, even 2000, like say 14, 15, whatever it would have been, that's when this went from being a franchise to being a business operation.
Yep. Comcast took over.
And this is exactly why the results are the way they are. It is in the last decade, the Flyers have never been, truthfully, I know it feels this way, but in the last decade, the Flyers have not been the worst team in the league, okay? They have
No, certainly not.
Not in the standings. They are not the worst team in the league.
Edmonton has a case for that. Buffalo has a case for that.
Sure,
the Flyers are nowhere near that.
And let's put it this way. They lucked themselves into the second overall pick a few years ago.
Yeah,
because that's how the lottery works.
2, correct?
But right.
Worked. Question mark. Past tense. It no longer works that way. You can't jump that high.
Well, no, but no, yeah. Oh, maybe not that high.
No, they jumped
yes.
13-2. You can only jump 10 spots now.
Right, but okay, and it's only 2 spots, I thought, right? Isn't it only first and second now? They're not going to do the third anymore?
Okay,
yeah.
I know they changed it.
They did change it to that, too.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay, so... But the bottom line is this team went year after year, and it was make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, make the playoffs, miss the playoffs. And it's still going on because it's going to happen again this year.
Yep.
And every game, but every game would hold a meaning. You know what I mean? Like, let's put it this way. We can sit here today and tell you after watching the Buffalo game this time around, not just the Buffalo one the first time around, but the Buffalo game this time around today, that they're not making the playoffs. And anybody with half a brain can see that, except for maybe the people who have no choice but to block that part of the brain out and act like mathematically they're still in it, right? So the players are going to sit there and tell you we got to turn the page, move on to the next game in Washington, and everybody else is laughing, The people who watch this team every night are laughing going, come on, be real. You know what I mean? Like, are you serious? Come on, right? And... But this has happened over the years too. I mean, there was the year that they traded Wayne Simmons and they were in the Stadium Series against Pittsburgh at the Link, all that stuff, right?
Right, when we knew he was going.
But the year that was happening, every point mattered at the time of the Stadium Series. It's mid-February. You're coming up on the deadline, and there's still a month and like a week to go, right, in the season at that point in time, beyond the trade deadline. And yet you sat there and you knew, you're like, even though you can sit there and say, well, they could technically, you knew you had to make that move, and they did. And that, in a way, is kind of admitting where it's going. Even though for the better part of the next month, we still sat there and it was mathematically they're in it. And but truthfully,
torture.
But it's because of the number of games after the deadline. March is still usually a very busy month for the NHL.
You still end up with almost 20 games.
Right. Well, I wouldn't say 20 because 20 would mean you're playing a lot of back-to-backs. But so in a 30-day month, yeah, you're like in that case, you are still playing 15 games probably in that month of March, 14 or 15, plus the last week of February.
Play a couple in April.
Plus the last week of February beyond when the deadline is, which in some cases is like the 23rd of February.
Right.
So you might get 3 more games in there in February before that's over. So now you're up to 17, and the first week of April could have 4.
Yeah, I meant like 20 games total, not 20 in March. Sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm saying is that the deadline's going to come tomorrow, and the Flyers have 15 left. Well, that's 5 sets of 2 points that you're out now. You know what I mean? So it makes it a little easier to kind of know where it's going and to realize also how I get it. This year it's different. How quickly things can shift, and
that's the thing.
And I do point that out for other teams, like other teams in other divisions. Nashville was dead in the water, and now they're in a playoff spot.
It is crazy how that's happened.
You know what I mean? Because they went on a winning streak, and they got
were
back
complete
into
sellers. Everybody not named Yossi, Rinne, and Forsberg were up for sale.
So
it was insane in Nashville.
So you got them, and you've got St. Louis, who also has struggled a lot this year, but they've been sort of hanging around. And again,
we all kind of expect them to just show up when the playoffs start.
Right. Now, and look, part of the problem with this is, or not part of the problem is, but part of the equation is, truth be told, the Flyers play in the toughest division in the league. I don't care who you are.
Certainly.
They play in the toughest division in the league, and that was doubled when you threw Boston into the mix this year. Because now you're playing in a division with all the teams that we knew were going to be part of this picture. The Islanders, Washington,
Thank God Carolina's not in this division, dude.
Yeah, for real.
We got lucky getting Buffalo, New Jersey, and the Flyers can't beat them.
Yeah.
Right? There's 2 easy dumpster teams in the division, and you're supposed to beat up on them, and the Flyers just can't beat them.
You can say that with Buffalo. New Jersey was going to be in this division one way or the other, and they've still had problems with New Jersey. I
know.
But anyway, so let's go back to what I was trying to say.
Well, the New Jersey games got a lot easier when they ship out Palmieri and Zajac. We might touch on that a little later on.
Did they?
Like
the Buffalo Sabres. No. I know they got shipped. I meant, did they get easier?
Oh, I mean,
the Buffalo Sabres just played
worse.
A game without Taylor Hall and Jack Eichel and won.
Yeah, but it's the weirdest thing about Buffalo. Linus Omar has actually been pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I will give them that. They do have
somehow he has a winning record.
Now, do you want to know something funny? I got a tweet from somebody who turned around and told, because because of the 2 afternoon games, I didn't do a takeaways article after Boston. I'm going to do one, and basically, I'm probably going to pivot because I said I was going to do one for the weekend. Now I'm probably just going to pivot and do one from the Buffalo game specifically because the Boston game doesn't even matter.
Boston game doesn't matter. It's over.
Yeah. And I had a guy tweet me who goes, "You were right to delay until after this game." Then he goes, "Be gentle. Buffalo has been giving everyone problems the last couple of weeks, but still can't happen in a must-win situation." No. But this is the part that bothers me because he goes, "And another no-name goalie steals the show. They need to really think about Hart." And I'm like, now stop with that stuff. Like, that bothers the hell out of me.
Right, because Linus Omar isn't a no-name goalie, if you're paying attention.
Well, not even.
First
no,
of all.
hold on. Linus Omar is not. I'm not saying he is or isn't. Okay, he plays for a very irrelevant team right now because they're awful.
I'll give you that.
And he's the footnote on it, right? Like, they could trade him, get some value, and he could show up on a team that contends and be a backup, and everybody would start to know maybe a little bit more about him. But
I think they should do everything under the sun to sign him, but that's because they need bodies. But that's just.
But I don't look at him and say he's irrelevant. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
This is not the It is what it is. You know what I mean? Like,
when you lose to Boston's fourth goalie.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. This isn't Jeremy Swayman, who hasn't played before. This is Linus Omar, who's been in Buffalo for 3 years, I think.
When a guy makes 40 saves in his debut, kind of an embarrassment, honestly. When he makes 40 saves and beats you in his debut, it's not a good look.
Well, let's be real, too. I know Omar finished with 40 saves in this game today because they got 43 shots total on goal. That's not why you lose the game. He didn't make any more incredible saves than anybody else would. You missed an empty net 3 times. Let's be real. You missed an open net 3 times, and you gave up 2 opportunities at the end that did you in, and it was the same thing as always. So it is what it is. That's not what I'm going back to. Let's go back to the, where I was talking about with this being a business and the problem with it. So, they've towed this line of being in contention for long enough and making it some years, missing it in others for so long. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they've done it for so long, and every game would hold meaning. And as long as every game held meaning, then the fans are invested the way that the business-like mindset of the Flyers wants them to be, right? Like, people are invested. You keep watching on TV. You keep spending your money on things like tickets or merchandise or food and drink at the games or whatever it is. And like we said, the Flyers are owned by Comcast.
Right.
That is a business owning a sports franchise, and that's
Comcast
nothing more,
looks at the Flyers as an asset and nothing more.
That is bingo. This is nothing more than a profit machine to those.
It slots into the portfolio.
Well, and look, we get to hear from we get to hear from Alain Vigneault after every game, right? Because that's what the coach does. And I hear a lot of people question if AV's lost the room or if his message is stale or he's throwing players under the bus or whatever. And I'm not trying to say, look, you can think whatever you want to about that, but here's the point. When you lose a game, when the Flyers lost 9-0 to the Rangers, and we did do a show after this, and I did say this, and we did do this ultimately, I turned and I said, I need to hear from Chuck Fletcher now. I need to hear from the guy above the coach to see what he thinks about it, because that's when you need the management to kind of step in. And I kind of thought this way after the 8-3 game that the Rangers threw on them after the fact. That also said...
The second embarrassing loss to the Rangers.
Right. And I felt that way again. But after they lost 6-1 to Buffalo, a team that had lost 18 straight games and all that, then I wanted to... I thought it was well beyond time that we heard from a guy named Dave Scott. Because Dave Scott is the supposed chairman of the team, if you will. And I want to know what...
He was the guy at the press conference when Chuck Fletcher was introduced.
Right. Yeah. Which is the only time he ever makes appearances, by the way. Yeah. So, and I'm like, people need to hear from the so-called chairman of this team and what he thinks of it and what he plans to try to do about it, if anything. Like, it's not his job to plan to do anything about it, but you're supposed to be like I turned out even said when they lost a game to a team that hadn't won, when they lost 9-0 for all I care. If Ed Snyder's ghost was able to come back from the dead, it would have. Because you don't you know what I mean? That's the way it used to be. You know what I mean? That's what it used to be. This is not acceptable, and we're going to find a way to do something about it. And then they actually would do something about it. But that's not the way they think anymore. Because now, this is the fans' loyalty being betrayed, in my opinion. This is a franchise that was founded upon the working class blue collar style that the city of Philadelphia was. And the fans who would go were the fans that went to work all day, every day, sometimes all week, sometimes all month, to make enough money to just go to one game.
There will be a link in the show below, the show notes below, to Kevin's GoFundMe for his fund to buy the team from Comcast.
No, I'm not going to.
We just have to raise enough money for Kevin to buy the team from Comcast.
Yeah, jeez,
and then he'll run the Flyers, and everything will be great.
No, don't put that responsibility on me. I wouldn't want to run this franchise for anything right now. But they would. But people would go, right. People would go to a game, watch a team that worked. The thing about this team was they would work as hard as those people did. These hardworking people in the city bring your hard hat and lunch pail to work and go and do a hard day's work, and then You go watch a hockey team that resembled that, and that's what people loved about this team. What people loved about this franchise was what happened after they got beat up and pushed around in their first few years of existence, and Ed Snyder kind of took a look and said, we're not going to be that anyway again. And I understand you can't just go and beat the crap out of people anymore.
You can't be the Broad Street Bullies anymore.
But you can go out and work harder than the other team every night. That's what makes a winning team.
If we're talking about the beating the crap out of people, I would like to mention we did have a Sam Moran knockout since our last show.
Yeah, who cares?
Since we're mentioning fights, and also there was a little bit of a skirmish today where Carter Hart looked for half a second like he might fight. For half a second?
All right, you know what the problem
Linus Omar was at center ice?
Do you want to know what the problem I have with that is, okay? Because you know when that becomes legitimate? Like, I love it. Like, it's like you're sitting there going, we almost had a line brawl today. And you go, except for the fact that nobody once in that single grouping of players on both sides of the ice, by the way, both teams, nobody drops a glove. They just hold on with gloves on and decide to start throwing haymakers at each other, which is worse.
Oh, right. You also know better than anybody that in a situation like that, when the tensions are that high, once one pair of gloves comes off, very quickly more follow. Right, so
sure,
it's one of your classic powder keg situation. If there was a spark there, and I think we would have seen it.
But I so don't care about stuff like that anymore. But whatever. So anyway, like to try to finish this whole little point off, because I know we're kind of really on this for a while, but this is really the point though of the whole thing, because these are the people that would go and watch this game, and they would watch a team that worked as hard as they do and would do what they had to win. And, like we said, you can't be the Broad Street Bullies anymore, but you can work. You've got to work. And here's a good example from just today's game. Kevin Hayes, what are you doing when you pull up just inside the blue line and stop and think you can rag for 5 seconds like that without moving your feet? Move your feet and work instead of doing that. Like, that's how hockey is played. And I don't care if the Buffalo Sabres have 9 wins on the year or 29 wins on the year in 40 games or 50 games or whatever it is. I don't care what they have. If you're not willing to go to work and try to earn, like at the end of the day, the Flyers made mistakes at the end of that game that cost them the game, and that's why they lose on turnovers and rebounds and off of lost faceoffs and icings and things like that. But the other team still had to do something to make that happen, and whether that's Skinner crashing the net to get into the position to put that puck in, whether that's the shot from the point that goes through and there's nobody there, so the guy who got the positioning took advantage and jumped in and made a play. They're still doing what they had to do, and if they just because they're a 9-win team does not mean that they don't know how to play. You know what I mean? Like, they can still score a goal.
They're all still NHL players, right? Real quick, while we're here, did you think it was a kick?
No, not after the first look. I thought it was, and then I saw another look, and he got pushed in.
He got pushed in, but it kind of looked like he was already starting to kick, and Claude Giroux just kind of helped his foot along.
But if Claude Giroux helped his foot along, then it's not a kick.
I know. Well, it was close enough that I think the call on the ice would have stood no matter what. It was one of those.
Well, and not only that, but think about the way that the official described it afterwards, by the way. There was no kicking motion.
The puck has entered the net legally.
The puck entered the net legally. So that's kind of a way of giving an explanation that does not say,
It does not say, hey, you might want to challenge this.
Well, I wouldn't even say that, because I don't know, I don't know if you can actually challenge for the kick. Like, the kick is one that the officials get kind of a notice of, like, hey, it went off of a foot, and they go,
is that a call from the league? Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. Like, it's not, you challenge goalie interference and you challenge offside. You don't challenge the kicking motion. And obviously there was nothing that hindered Carter Hart there, because the puck was already behind him when anything happened in the crease. So it was clean from that angle, and it was clean from, all that type of stuff. So it's,
Yeah. So circling all the way back to the trade deadline. You think activity, if there's any, will be fairly minimal?
Well, I always did, but
right.
I always did think it was going to be minimal at this time of the year, but it doesn't take away the fact that they need to do something significant down the road. Like, you've got to do something in the offseason that changes the total outlook of this team.
Like what? I'm curious. I brought up Claude Giroux, and you didn't seem particularly interested in that kind of change. So what would you do?
I didn't say it's not that I'm interested. I don't blame it all on him, but I didn't say I'm not interested. I'm saying, like, I don't know if it's that. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how you're supposed to make that move. That's what I'm saying. Like,
well,
like,
in the offseason, people have a little
and
more
I don't mean. And by the way, I don't know how you're supposed to make that move. Like trade Claude Giroux. I mean, trade anybody who's got a contract like that.
Right.
I don't know how you do that. Nobody wants it. So how do you do it? And I know you're going to say eat salary, but it's 1 year. And I know for Claude Giroux, for example, it's 1 year left on the contract.
Right. But for Jake, it's 2. For James Van Riemsdyk, or for Jake, it's more than that. For James Van Riemsdyk, it's several years. For Kevin Hayes, it's several years.
And Hayes has a no move anyway. So
yep.
Look, you got to start. You got to start small. Okay, you got to start small, and by starting small, I would literally call up anybody who's willing, and find a way to trade Scott Laughton and Michael Raffle tomorrow. You got to do it. Okay. You got to start there because for 2 reasons.
What about Brian Elliott?
I don't know if I trade him because quite frankly, I don't even know if I want to keep giving. Like, I want to have the option on the table that if I want to put Alex Lyon into a game because I don't want Carter Hart to be lit up every single night, then I can. You know what I mean? Like, it sounds horrible.
It
sounds horrible to say, but like if you trade Brian Elliott, for example, because he has
you're chalking the season.
Yes,
you're chalking the season. It's done.
Oh, I know I'm chalking the season, but I'm saying if you trade Brian Elliott.
At that point, you might as well play Ustamenko Lyon as your goaltending duo.
Didn't Ustamenko have the surgery? So you're thinking Felix Sandstrom? Maybe.
No, even Felix Sandstrom. That's fine. Can we get Anthony Stollars back? Is that possible?
No, he actually won a game not long ago with Anaheim.
I know. I saw the headline and I was very excited for Anthony Stollars. Good for him.
Honestly, from my time covering the team, one of the nicest guys that's been in the locker room over the years. And I know that's like, again, here we go. I'm saying like that sounds like a cliche based on all the stuff I said, but like he worked really hard to get to that level to try to be in the NHL at some point because he had a really bad injury in juniors and all that stuff, and he worked really hard to get back. And he also was never the top choice. You know what I mean? Like Like at one point in time, I can tell you a funny story about Anthony Stollars. It was probably one of the first training camps that Carter Hart was around. It might have been either the first one he was at or the second one, because it was whatever year it was really starting to pick up steam that he was going to. It might have been the year he was going pro. That Hart was going to be the guy, and everybody knew it was going to be soon. And everybody was standing around, and one of the players, I forget who it was, but it was a lower end guy, turned around and kind of like asked, so like they're all kind of waiting around or whatever. Like who are they waiting for or whatever? Meaning the media, because we just kind of gathered in there. We kind of stand around the room until the player.
And you're all waiting for Carter Hart.
And Stollars went. I'll give you 79 guesses.
That's funny.
And but that's I can't imagine for him being a guy who had worked for several more years than Carter Hart did from his draft year to be not the guy, you know what I mean? Especially when he had a little taste of NHL experience by that point. So to not be the guy who was next in line potentially, like at the minor league level or whatever, like that was a guy who knew his job was slipping away.
If Anthony Stollars hadn't had some unfortunate injury situations, I would have been very, very happy to have him be Alex Lyon.
Well, and here's the thing too. Like when I
or
say
even a backup.
When I say Anthony Stollars knew his job was slipping away that year, I'm about, like that was the year I think Carter Hart was supposed to go start at the AHL. So like there's a guy who's even sitting there and going, I'm not even going to be the AHL starter because they're going to give this kid a lot of games.
Right. If you're starting for a team, it's going to be the Reading Royals.
And I don't think
at that point.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think that was done like I don't say out of jealousy, but like it's not done out of ill will for Carter Hart. It's just like
goalie is like
it's tough to work around.
Is unlike any other position because there's only one net. You can have 3 or 4 really good defensemen. You can only have one really good goalie. Like you know what I mean? You don't want to be a team's second best goalie. You're just not going to see the ice.
No, not anymore.
Sure, but in the playoffs, when players want to prove themselves, you're seeing starters.
You tell me if in Long Island, if Semyon Varlamov is upset because here's a kid coming in who's getting half the starts.
No, because next year that kid's going to get all the starts.
No, he won't though.
Not all of them, but you know what I mean.
No, actually, no, he won't, and I'll tell you why. Because Barry Trotz doesn't coach that way.
Okay, fine. Barry Trotz aside.
No, but all right.
You're starting goaltender starts your games.
No, then do you want to know who? But then do you want to know who's feeling that way? Maybe a little bit like somebody like out in Colorado, like Francouz, who's like been the backup at times, but he's had injury trouble, and he could be that guy because they've been good enough on both ends of it. And now you go and get Devin Dubnyk instead. You know what I mean? Like, and now, it's not going to be.
I don't know if it's an instead thing.
No. Well, no, I'm saying.
Well, I think teams are adding goalies kind of willy nilly because we all saw what happened at the beginning of the season, and you can't reliably waive a goalie at any point. So I think teams are being so nervous and so cautious about their goalies, and I think everyone's getting a little bit of extra insurance for the playoffs.
I mean, yes, no, maybe so. I mean, like, to me, Grubauer is the number one there, and then now Dubnyk's going to be the two. So where does that leave the other guy in there? And this is a team that should be able to go for it, right?
Well, is like Dubnyk the two though, or is Dubnyk the three?
No, I don't think you trade for. If that was the case, then why would you even trade for a goalie if you like the other two?
I mean, I think it only cost you a fifth round pick.
Well, yeah, but
Greg Patterin in a 5th round pick.
But let's be real about something with that for a minute, okay? Because here's the thing: even the guy who's the number 2 knows he's not the guy when the playoffs start. Like, the whole point of the balance between the two goalies has not really as much to do with the playoffs as it does with getting there. Once you get through the regular season, you have to kind of not have to pick the guy. And for all I know, Barry Trotz still won't do that with the Islanders, and we'll still be seeing Ilya Sorokin as much as we see Semyon Varlamov throughout the playoffs. I mean, they did that last year.
Yeah, he did split some time last year, didn't he?
Okay, but here's the point: they don't make goalies. Or teams don't operate with goalies the way that Tampa's able to with Andrei Vasilevsky, because Andrei Vasilevsky is here.
He's insane. And
the next guy in line is here. Like
the next 82 game season, Andrei Vasilevsky might start 70 games, and we haven't seen that since Martin Brodeur retired.
Who was the goalie that did that? I believe it or not, didn't Cam Talbot start like 65 or 70 games with Edmonton the one year?
The year he won the Vezina?
Well, he didn't win the Vezina.
Or the year he was nominated for the Vezina?
Probably.
Did Cam Talbot not win the Vezina? I thought he did.
No, Cam Talbot definitely never won a Vezina.
I thought he won the Vezina that year. Okay,
no, because if he did, then the year that he came to the Flyers, he would have probably been playing a whole lot more, and he probably would still be here. Why would you not, if you traded for a guy who had previously won the Vezina, why would you not make an effort to keep him? Other than that he didn't want to be here. You know?
I guess that's fair.
Which in fairness, of course he wouldn't have wanted to be here. Do you know why he didn't want to be here at the end of it? Because he never played. But
why would you
he
want to be
wasn't a
here?
Vezina winning goalie, so that doesn't matter. It doesn't make it's not here or there.
Also, by the way, you've been kind of alluding to big changes in the organization, and maybe nothing will happen before the deadline, but something should happen in the offseason. And we have someone named CM watching on YouTube who has that to say. And then at this point in time, no one's going to pull the trigger because no one above him is very interested in firing him. But I agree with the sentiment.
I didn't say I did. Like I said, I didn't disagree with the sentiment. It's not that. It's you know who has to do that, and it's a faceless owner. You know what I mean? Like, it's an ownership group that does. It's a business.
And we had that problem with the Phillies for several years too. I know we're not a Phillies show,
but that right there, by the way, the reason Paul Holmgren is still around the team and Bob Clark is still around the team, I'll tell you exactly why it is. Because Bobby Clark should be able to be that face, like that ambassador for the team that goes around again. Same thing, like Bernie, shaking hands, kissing babies, whatever not in COVID time, but you get
6 feet apart. Yeah,
6 feet apart for right now. But that's the thing, like, because no question about it. You're two of the greatest Flyers of all time. If Bernie Parent and Bobby Clark are still around games because you want them to be fan people, go right ahead. That's fine.
Yeah, great.
Guess what?
Perfect. Awesome.
Other teams still do that too. Other teams are still
absolutely fantastic.
Rolling out people like that too for the same reason, okay? Don't get me wrong. But the point is that they are basically, I'll tell you exactly why they hold those positions. Because Comcast doesn't have anybody who sits there and watches the games like that. Like you said it, Kyle. Ed Snyder would be at all the games, right?
Yep.
Because the owner would actually show up to the games. Dave Scott doesn't come to the games.
No. There's no way. This is in his portfolio. Just like we talked about earlier. This is a feather in his cap and probably his third most important job if you asked him.
And in fairness, they tried previously in franchise history, they tried to groom Jay Snyder to be this guy. And it didn't work out then either.
Well,
and now they don't
not go particularly well because him and Bobby Clark clashed so hard?
A little bit, but that's all. So you're sitting here saying it should have been Bobby Clark that was the problem?
I'm saying the franchise still hasn't won a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, but that has so much less to do with whether or not Bobby Clark's hanging around or whether or not. No, because
I think Bobby Clark might be personally responsible for this franchise not winning a Stanley Cup because of how he handled Eric Lindros, but that's a whole nother conversation. That is an entirely separate conversation.
It is an entirely, and quite frankly,
and we're not going to have it today.
We're not going to have it ever, probably, because it's not a conversation I need to get into. Honestly,
fair.
I don't care about it. Like, I don't care about
That's
whether,
fair.
like, I don't care about what the logistics are of it. Like, that's still the problem. Is that you've got these people who they're stand-ins to run the franchise, kind of, in a way, because your owner is not real. Like, your owner might as well not be a real person, because it's not a
He's
real
not.
person.
There is no owner.
Well, no, exactly. That's the guy we keep referring to is the chairman.
Yep.
And the owner is a business.
There's the face of the mysterious background shadowy figure that owns the team.
I mean, for all I care, like, let's be real about this. For all I care, Gritty owns the team. And then you go. No,
Telling me Dave Scott lives in the construction sites of the Wells Fargo Center?
No, I'm telling you, Dave Scott doesn't show up to anything, and Gritty might as well be the one running the damn show.
You're not wrong.
But here's the thing. But here's the other thing about this, okay? Because they also go back to a thing I keep hearing a lot about is Valerie Camillo is the president of the Wells Fargo Center or something like that. So everything is about, this is where all these promotions and the Gritty videos and all this, because this was the mastermind, and you brought up the Phillies a little earlier. So let me go back to that, because this was these were the masterminds. She was part of this group, by the way, the masterminds behind Natitude. Remember that with the Washington Nationals and how even though they were a sad and sorry franchise that granted has now since won a World Series, fine, but that was like the whole thing. Like everything was about this is where these anytime anywhere fly or die now.
Remember
or
when it
never
was
come
fly or
from.
die, and then Oscar Lindblom got diagnosed with cancer 2 months into the season, and they changed
Yeah,
it
and then
very
I realized,
quickly.
oh, that's a bad look. The way that they do that type of stuff is pathetic, because of the fact that they just try to ride they try to ride the loyalty of it. They ride the loyalty of people keep showing up. Let's put it this way. I went on I'm trying to remember exactly when I went on the air. I guess it was Wednesday I went on the air to do a spot, and it was after the second Boston game they lost in regulation. And not only in admitting that, the season didn't end with that loss. The season ended with the loss to Buffalo the week before. 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks ago now. I mean, it's been a week and a half. They've lost to Buffalo twice now. But beside the point.
Pathetic.
It being that, I turned and even said, I got asked 3,900 people allowed in the building, how many are there? And I turned and said it might have been, honestly, on Tuesday night, it might have been half, and there were a lot of Bruins fans there.
I absolutely believe that.
And that's the state of this franchise right now. It is a sad state of the franchise, and it is the way it is because
do you want to spend that kind of money and go through the COVID protocols and sit blah blah blah?
Well, no, it has not.
Spend $400 on a beer, and
it's not even
do
that
you want
though.
To pay for this product?
Well, I agreed, but at the same time, it's not even that. My problem, this is my problem with this. It's not necessarily, again, it comes down to how much money are they making. So guess what? Whether you're a Flyers fan or a Bruins fan or whatever it is, if you paid the money to park your car, if you paid the money for the tickets, if you're buying food and drink while you're there or anything like that, then they already got what they got, the money. And that's all that matters at this point. It is a business. So whether they don't care. It's not, gone are the days to an extent where it was like today. Here's a funny little thing, because today was Kids Day at the game, which maybe the best part was the fact that they turned things from, I guess our age group would appreciate this because we're pushing 30 here, or getting toward that point. So in the last 25, 30 years, you're sitting here talking about what did we grow up on when we were 10 years old, and that's some of the stuff they do.
Well,
and it's kind of funny, but
next
but
time
they
need to do kids' night on an actual night, so that at 9:00 all the parents go home, and then the team blows the lead, and the kids get to go home while they're still leading 3-2.
Oh, that would be funny. Yeah, instead of doing an afternoon,
that would have been way
game,
better.
Whatever. Well, but anyway, they gave out Gritty rally towels today, which there we go again with Gritty, right? But
how many ended up on the ice? The answer's not enough.
None, actually, because there's no one close enough. Well, you're not close enough to the ice right now. But so anyway, but they're draped over the seats, right? And my point is this, okay? Gone are the days when the playoffs would roll around and it's orange T-shirts for everyone. We're going to do the orange out type thing, orange crush, right? Remember when that was a thing and you would have a building full of people and they're all wearing the orange shirts?
I have several of them, and I wear them all the time.
And they've done it for more than
them.
They've done it for more than just playoffs. By the way, they did it for home openers and things like that. And it's
I
fun.
remember what specific games shirts are from, and it's a good memory, and it's a good and they don't do it anymore. It's all rally towels, and they all look the same.
No, it's not that they don't do it anymore. Well, look, we haven't had a chance to see what it would have been like. Because last year, imagine what would have happened last season.
Second round would have been nuts.
Right. And I'm sure that home ice advantage would play a little bit into some of that for sure. But don't get me
against
wrong.
a team like the Islanders. But again, not the conversation we're having.
No, we're not. But look, whatever. You get the point. It's just a matter of, like, that's what it's about. And you don't have 20,000 people in the building anymore that are wearing orange shirts all at the same time and doing stuff like that. Now it's become whoever decides to show up is a guest of ours, and they're spending their money, and they're, and that is what it is. And it's not even like the stuff's affordable anymore. A lower level ticket to a game right now to be one of 4,000 people is $100 at least. And that's ridiculous. You got people who are losing their jobs during a pandemic, and you're supposed to be catering to the no, but you're supposed to be. The whole point was you were founded on the hardworking blue collar worker type, and now you're basically a premium product that nobody wants to pay for because
First of all, a lower bowl seat is always $100 basically.
No, I get that, but what I'm trying to say is
especially now, you're not going to get cheaper prices when they only have 10% or 20% capacity or whatever it is, and they're trying to recoup every dollar they have. You're not going to see. No, I'm talking about from the team. You're not going to see slash ticket prices from them.
No, really? Because did you see the Crossing Broad piece?
No, did they just slash ticket prices?
About the email that season ticket holders got after some of them have already purchased tickets because they're the only ones who really get the offers. They only go to the general public like last minute, right?
Right.
So they get the things, and the season ticket holders are buying these things 2 weeks in advance, and then they are the ones who got the email the other day about how tickets are now $35 for like the whatever it is or something like that. And they're the people who spent $75 for their tickets.
Right.
And now you're telling people
seen the Crossing Broad piece. No, I didn't see that.
It's like a whole thing.
No.
It is business mismanagement.
That's a shame.
It's business mismanagement 101 with them.
It's pathetic.
Everything they do is a misstep when it comes to the business side of this thing, and they're all about business. So you can only imagine why the hockey team flat out sucks too. You know what I mean?
That's the kind of move that you expect to hear out of an owner like Eugene Melnick, or an organization that's going through the troubles that an organization like Buffalo's going through or Arizona's going through. And Philadelphia is supposed to be a good hockey market. And Philadelphia is supposed to be one of your big market premium teams. And they just keep running out this inferior garbage product. And I don't know how long until the fans decide that they've had enough.
Well, most of them have already, to be honest. I mean,
a lot of them have, yeah. And you can hide behind it now because you're not trying to fill a 20,000 seat building because you're not allowed to. But if you had full capacity right now, would there be 11,000 people at that like probably today because you won yesterday. You're whatever. You're gonna get people. It's a weekend. Tuesday night against a team like Winnipeg, for example. Nothing against Winnipeg, but they don't have a whole lot of local fans. Are you getting more than 11,000 people in the building for the team that's currently skating on the ice?
Possibly.
And I'm talking about in the building. Like, you're going to sell more tickets than that. Tickets are going to go unused in this current situation.
I'm going to tell you possibly, and I'll tell you why. Because even now,
but the fact that you had to think about it, by the way.
But I'll tell you why. Even now, there's about 3,900 seats, right?
Right.
So 97.3 this week to the Tuesday game against Boston and the Sunday game against Buffalo gave away 3 4-packs of tickets.
Whew. That's pathetic.
And
that's some
that's
AHL stuff.
And by the way, that's not like I'm not trying to downplay the station that I write for or anything.
No,
right?
It's a smaller station.
But what I'm trying to get is that's not the flagship station. You know what that means? The flagship station probably got those packages
20.
too, or more, which means that you're giving away upwards of 100 tickets just through radio stations, probably. Yep. Let alone let's try to
WIP got some, and
I don't know about
everybody
WIP.
got some.
I don't know about WIP because WIP is not part of the radio network per se. Like 97.3 airs Flyers games, so because of that, they get the tickets.
It wouldn't surprise me if WIP got some just because they're WIP, but maybe not a ton.
Perhaps, but even so, it's like
even still, if you have
giving
to give away
away,
too many tickets.
and not only that, but there's again another Crossing Broad piece. There's some rumors about tickets being comped to people and things like that.
And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if they're paper in it at all.
Did you see also Anthony Sanfilippo, who does write for Crossing Broad, tweeted out before yesterday's game that the fake crowd noise sounded louder than usual, and then had to tweet out after the first period that someone from the team told him it was no louder than usual, but he's going to just tweet it out in a way that says like fans can make their own decision on that. Something of that sort, but which was hilarious in its own right.
Yeah, there are some severe cracks in this team, and I don't necessarily know if we've seen them all along. And I think you started spotting them pretty early here, but I think as the season goes along, we just kind of see things crumbling, and we see things like the mishandling of season ticket holders, which the Flyers are usually pretty good about.
We did do a show after the 9-0 game, right?
Yeah,
it's been a little while, but we did, right? Because I believe
I blacked that show out.
Oh, well, because I believe I used the words organizational failure then, and that's exactly what it is. Because from top to bottom, you have a problem.
You have a problem, and I think it's from the tippy top.
But you don't look. I've said this before about things like that. Like, you can sit there and if you're an Eagles fan and go, I don't like Jeffrey Lurie, but you don't have anything you can do about it. You don't fight. The owner doesn't get fired. He's the owner. He bought it. He owns it. You know,
Jeffrey Lurie's got a ring.
Yeah, but when things go south quickly,
I understand.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to. I get where you're coming from, but what I'm saying
Comcast doesn't have a ring. Paul Holmgren doesn't have a ring as an executive. Bob Clark doesn't have a ring as an executive.
The fact
how many years?
The fact that you have to clarify that, though, is exactly where some of the problems lie, right?
Correct.
Like, that you have to clarify. Oh wait, they don't have one as an exec,
listen, the reason Bob Clark has been here for 40 years and doesn't have a ring as an executive is because he had rings as a player.
Sure.
At wearing the C. And again, he did a great job long time. I'm not, whatever. But the fact that he is still involved in the team to this day, at this point, there is no excuse for Bob Clark to be in your front office at all. Not with any sort of say. All right. I think that's enough depression for today. We watched the Flyers blow a lead to the Buffalo Sabres, and I haven't decided if I'm watching Tuesday's game yet.
I love that.
We're going game by game at this point.
No, I love how that's what you get to say, and I have no choice.
Yeah, sorry. I get to turn it off in the first period if they give up 2 goals.
Look, not to plug a different show on here.
No, go for it.
But I've done it here before. Broads and I have already talked about for Open Ice hits, when we get to, like, the playoffs are going to be really exciting for us at that point because because we do league-wide scope. We're going to be talking about also Broads and I we each have our teams, by the way, because Broads has been all in on Toronto all year for whatever reason. That's always. Oh, I know, but I have mine. I picked Colorado because I said I love this Colorado team. I think they're excellent.
Let me throw my hat in the ring here. Let's take a look.
You're going to pick a team?
Yeah.
I don't know why I get to. Well, here's the thing. I'm not that I think Colorado is the type of team that's going to win it all, and I think they're fun to watch. I'll get behind Nashville because I always have, but
sure.
You know what I mean.
I'm gonna go Tampa.
Oh, that's such a boring pick.
It's a little boring. Well, listen, Toronto's kind of a boring pick at this point, and Colorado isn't exactly a dark horse.
I'm shocked you didn't pick Carolina.
Listen, I think Carolina has the damage to make some noise. I don't know if they have the goaltending to get through a team like Tampa.
I'd have to check because are they using Nedeljkovic more exclusively now?
Yeah. He came up and was playing, but I think since Mrazek's been healthy, Mrazek's kind of been back in.
Yeah, but I know Nedeljkovic is still playing because he was... A few years back, the Phantoms played the Charlotte Checkers in a playoff series.
He was crazy good in that series. I remember.
And
that was the 5 overtime series, wasn't it?
Yeah, the 5 overtime game was in that, yes.
Yeah.
But that's still... And by the way, that's another damper on the weekend, by the way, because... Yes, the Flyers won on Saturday, and for a few brief moments, people were thinking what would happen if they won on Sunday, and they were in position to win this Sunday game. But
I was one of those people. I was thinking that for most of Sunday.
But the other part of it is that Cam York signed. We didn't mention that yet, by the way.
And
we should have.
Yeah,
Cam
York signed his
ELC,
his debut on
and was
Saturday
pretty
night.
much ready to make his debut, and then the Phantoms probably have a COVID case, and now that's all in.
And now who knows? Right.
So that was disappointing because not only yesterday, but today they were supposed to play. So they had 2 games postponed this weekend, and Cam York probably would have played in both. And
it would have been a good chance to see his first professional hockey.
Not only would it have been a good chance to see his first professional hockey, but the idea is that he's going to probably. Well, now I would fully expect it at this point. You know, he'll make his NHL debut this year probably because they started that ELC this year. And why would you not play him at this level if you have nothing else to play for other than to see what people have got? I do think he's going to get a couple of weeks down in the minors first, but I'm saying I wouldn't be shocked if you got to May and that 1 week or week and a half of 5 games is a time to showcase him.
I wonder if they'll hold on to his rookie eligibility just in case. You know,
what do you mean by his rookie eligibility?
His Calder eligibility, just in
Well,
case. If he plays under enough NHL games,
that's why
he's
I said
still
it might.
considered a rookie for next year.
But that's why. Well, but that's why I said he'll think about maybe the last 5 games of the season or something.
I would love
like
to
that,
say
or,
it.
You know,
Well, we've seen the Flyers do that before.
He's
Travis
not gonna-
Sanheim got some looks like that. Sam Moran got some looks like that. The Flyers like bringing guys up at the end.
He's not going to dip into that rookie eligibility with like 8 or 9 games though, and they've only got 15 left. So figure he gets 3 more weeks to like actually get back playing and practice and play with the Phantoms, because whenever they get back, and then goes from there and probably plays out the last maybe 7 games. Something like that. And that won't do anything to his rookie eligibility or anything like that. I fully think that they expect him to not only play at this level this year, but they also expect him to be there next year.
Well, at the end of a kind of a depressing show, there is a little bit of a glimmer of hope there in the
silver lining, people.
There's the silver lining. That's about all you're getting out of us. If you have tuned in for the live portion of this show, I'd like to say thank you very much. We appreciate you stopping by with us on the YouTube channel and on Flyerdelphia on Facebook. If you do not follow us already, you can follow us on all our social media. It's been scrolling at the bottom of the screen the whole show. The show is at YWT Podcast on Twitter, and Kevin is at Kevin_Durso. We're pretty much everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, Podbean, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, etc., sportstalkphilly.com. We're pretty much everywhere, and we'll be back next week. I know we had a couple weeks off, but
yeah, and we will we'll repost the live show from tonight,
and we will. This will still go up as a normal podcast. Yeah, this will still go up as a normal podcast on all those podcast catchers.
Yeah, now pretty much. I mean, you'll be able to go to the YouTube channel and watch it immediately. Or rewatch the broadcast on the Flyerdelphia Facebook page. But
if you do check it out on
sportstalkphilly.com as well.
Yes, and if you do check it out on the YouTube channel, make sure to drop a subscribe over there. All our new episodes go up over there. Sometimes we do some pre and post game videos. We've been a little sketchy on that. We'll see about getting that started in the future. I'm not going to make any promises. But I can promise fairly confidently that we will be back alive with another show next week. We took a little 2-week break. I think we're back on the horse here, ready to finish out the stretch, and
I just don't think it's
see if the Flyers do anything.
It's not a live show next week because
no, it won't be a live show.
No, because next week it's going to be they have a 12:30 home game against Washington and then a 6:30 home game the Sunday night against the Islanders. So we'll probably do the Sunday morning thing again.
Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning. We'll figure that out.
Well, let's put it this way: we're not going to be hard on the game thing anymore with the schedules because
the games don't matter.
Well, exactly.
You're
next
out.
Next week's show is all about deadline and the lack thereof of what they do or whatever.
At this point, can the Flyers get low enough in the standings to have a shot at the first overall pick? Probably not, but
no, because that's Buffalo. Even though Buffalo has tried their hardest by winning
a lottery.
Games.
I mean, if they can get low enough in the standings, they hit the lottery. But
I mean, right now they're ranked 15th in points, which isn't going to cut it either. I mean, if they lost a bunch of games in a row, maybe, but
we'll see how it goes.
Welcome to the problem. They're not good enough to be a consistent playoff team and not bad enough to be at the bottom of the standings.
Your Philadelphia Flyers, everybody. And that'll do it for us today. Sorry to go out on such a poor note. We'll try to be in better spirits next week, and we'll see ya.
See ya.